Recently, we saw the launch of the very first spot XRP ETF in Canada on June 18. Pretty exciting, right? But here's the crazy part. Right after that, another one launched too. That brings us to a total of 3 XRP ETFs now. First, we had the Hashdex XRP ETF back in April in Brazil, which was a big deal. Then came the Purpose XRP ETF, also known as the Promise one, but we'll dive into that in a second. And now we've got the 3IQ XRP ETF joining the mix. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, we're going to dive into all of this, but here's what's exciting. We're starting to see the ETF market for XRP really take off. And I want to break down what that actually means for you. Before we get into all the details, let's kick things off with this post from Smoke Dog. It features what looks like an official XRP ETF advertisement, not aimed at retail investors, but at institutional ones. The ad highlights how investors can tap into the future of global payments infrastructure in a secure and efficient way. Basically, it's pitching XRP as a way to access its growth potential through a regulated ETF that holds XRP directly. The XRP ledger's powerful blockchain technology, combined with XRP's growing adoption by financial institutions worldwide, is setting the stage for a major shift in cross-border payments. Big names like Gemini and Coinbase are already on board, and Ernst & Young audits the whole process for added trust. What's really exciting is how this ETF is being pitched to institutional investors as a secure and efficient way to access XRP. It's amazing to see how this technology is enabling financial institutions to streamline cross-border payments in a way that's faster, smarter, and backed by blockchain innovation. It's honestly amazing to see how huge XRP is getting, not just with retail users, but on the institutional side too. I love that they've included a chart showing XRP's historical performance, especially since so many people keep saying how poorly it's been doing. But here's the thing, just take a look at how XRP stacks up against the S&P 500 and NASDAQ 100 since way back in July 2020. XRP is looking solid right now. No need to stress about its price action at the moment. But here's the exciting part. We're seeing just how big this revolution is and how crucial XRP is within it. And if that's not impressive enough, let's talk about 3IQ. Yep. They've made history again. We're thrilled to share that the 3IQ XRP ETF, including XRPQ and XRPQU, has officially launched and is now listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange. This week, the 3IQ team proudly joined the TSX crew to close the market and ring the bell at TMX Money, celebrating XRPQ's first day of trading. Not only is this a huge milestone for 3IQ, but it's also a major win for the broader digital asset industry. Big things are happening and we're just getting started. Let's keep building the future together. This is super exciting, guys. With all these major ETF announcements and moves happening, you might be thinking, okay, but does it even matter? XRP's price is still doing its thing or trading at the same level, right? But here's the deal. There's a lot more going on behind the scenes. The institutional market is starting to open up and the traction XRP is gaining outside the US is a big deal. I keep emphasizing outside the US because, as we know, the SEC is still dragging its feet. The next decision on the Franklin Templeton Spot XRP ETF is set for July 22nd. So stay tuned. Guess what? We now have 3 XRP ETFs, and get this, 3IQ ETF might actually include 3 more ETFs, but I can be wrong on that. Here's what I do know. Canada already has 1 or 2 XRP ETFs trading live, some even tied to futures, but with all these ETFs officially launching, it really makes you wonder, what is the SEC waiting for? That's the big question here. Are they just holding off until the case wraps up officially? While we wait, other markets like Canada and Brazil are jumping on this in a big way. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing even more XRP ETF announcements. Singapore is definitely on my radar because XRP is already a huge name there. South Korea could be another big one to watch. Coinbase's chief legal officer, Paul Grewal, shared a great post recently reminding us about Bitcoin's early days and how far things have come. It's a timely reminder too, as Canadians start trading the 3IQ XRP ETF today. Here's the key takeaway. Regulatory clarity drives innovation. Canada has been leading the charge in this space. They launched the world's first Bitcoin ETF back in 2021, and now they've beaten the US again with an XRP ETF. It's long overdue for the US to catch up and finally get proper crypto market structure legislation in place. Think about it. Bitcoin didn't get a spot ETF in the US until years after Canada's first one. Actually, it took 3 years. Sure, the US had futures ETFs, but let's be real. Futures aren't the same. They don't involve holding the physical Bitcoin, which is what really matters here. With spot trading, the underlying asset is definitely impacted in terms of volume, which is why no one really pays attention to the futures ETFs. They're all about the spot ones. Honestly, though, why is the US still playing catch up? If we're hearing all this buzz about people like Trump, Scott Bassett, and David Sachs being all in on crypto and talking about the US becoming a leader, now's the time to step up. Let's get this XRP spot ETF live in the US already. It's already trading outside the US. And while we're at it, let's greenlight those additional ETFs for altcoins too. It's pretty wild that we already have XRP futures ETFs trading live in the US, but still no spot ETF. Doesn't really make a lot of sense, right? On top of that, take a moment to imagine this. Hundreds of institutions holding billions of dollars worth of XRP directly, just like the ones in the images below. It's not just about payment volumes anymore. It's about institutions adopting XRP on a massive scale. Exciting times ahead, but let's be real. Most people aren't ready for what's coming. Hey, I get it. There's so much we talk about that's out of our control, and we often focus on how bullish things can be. But let's take a minute to look at some of the moves XRP has made this year. They're definitely worth paying attention to. Think about this. Owning 10,000 XRP today is already a stretch for most retail investors. Now imagine trying to get 20,000, 30,000, or even 50,000 XRP. For many, those numbers are simply out of reach right now. I really believe that over time, XRP is going to become out of reach for a lot of retail investors. I see people saying, oh, you can still buy one XRP for this price or that price. Sure, but that's just one XRP. The real conversation is about holding significant amounts. Big players are already moving in. For example, Webis just filed with the SEC for a $300 million XRP treasury management plan. And if that's not big enough, Trident announced a $500 million financing plan for XRP treasury. And they brought on Chain Securities LLC as their strategic advisor. All right, so just from these two alone, we're looking at 800 million. Pretty impressive, right? And we already know there are more out there. Take Viva, for example, with 121 million, or Logistics with 50 million. We've talked about this before, how we're seeing more and more companies launching XRP treasuries, and the numbers just keep growing. Now think about Ripple's partners for a second. These aren't just small players. We're talking major institutional names. A lot of them are already invested in Ripple. Standard Chartered, for instance, has backed Ripple, and SBI has been a longtime supporter. Now, imagine what could happen when even bigger banks, institutions, and enterprises start jumping in and doing what these companies are doing. There's really nothing stopping others from following suit, and the potential here is massive. Why? Well, it ties back to that purpose, the idea of an XRP ETF. To take a look at how XRP stacks up against the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ, it's impressive, right? But here's where it gets even more interesting. When you compare XRP to Bitcoin and Ethereum over the last 12 or 24 months, XRP has actually outperformed both. Right now, XRP is proving to be more lucrative than Bitcoin or Ethereum. I truly believe we're going to see more institutional players and treasuries getting on board with XRP. We're likely to see a lot more buying, holding, and demand for XRP, which could lead to a significant reduction in supply. Sure, some might argue there are over 90 billion XRP out there, so there's no way we'll face a supply shortage. And okay, that's easy to say now, but think about where this space is heading. Consider the growing demand from stablecoin projects and tokenized assets. When you look at the bigger picture, XRP is one of the most valuable projects out there. Plus, let's not forget it has the first built-in decentralized exchange, DEX. XRP was one of the first major ledgers designed for tokenizing assets, which makes it a pretty historical coin when you think about it. But what's even more exciting is the potential it holds in today's market. Once ETFs start getting announced in the US and more companies begin using XRP for treasury management, I honestly think retail investors could get priced out, and it might happen faster than people expect. A lot of folks might dismiss this and call it nonsense, but here's the challenge. If you think it's nonsense, go ahead and try buying just one Bitcoin right now. These days, owning a whole Bitcoin feels nearly impossible for most people. That's why tokenization is such an exciting space to watch right now. Take the XRP ledger, for example. There are already 7 assets on it, and we're just getting started. We're seeing DeFi and institutional DeFi really starting to take shape, and the growth potential is huge. Stablecoin initiatives and on-chain finance aren't just going to grow a little. They're set to multiply dramatically. We're talking way beyond 5x or 10x. This is going to be way bigger than most people realize. Think about it. When we look at the overall market, we often compare things to something like the stock market. Stocks are valued in the trillions because their prices are tied to a company's performance, right? But with XRP, its current value is still mostly tied to Bitcoin. Now imagine a future where XRP's value is actually tied to its real utility. That's when things will truly change. At that point, it'll be almost impossible for anyone to scoop up large amounts of XRP. Why? Because I believe the value will skyrocket way beyond what it is today, to the point where it'll be out of reach for many retail investors. This isn't some far-fetched idea. It's actually happening. The market for XRP is opening up and institutional players are jumping on board. We're even seeing ETFs popping up outside the US, which in my opinion is putting serious pressure on the SEC and the US market to catch up. Like Paul Girl says, I really think it's just a matter of time before we see a fully approved XRP ETF in the US. Once that happens, everything else is going to fall into place and it'll likely use up a big chunk of XRP from the market. Honestly, I don't think we'll have to wait much longer. Give it about 24 months, maybe 2 years. By then, I believe XRP's price will make it tough for most retail investors to hold large amounts. In fact, we're already seeing this happen. It's not as easy for people to just go out and grab 10,000, 20,000, or 30,000 XRP anymore. I bet there are plenty of retail investors who wish they could go back in time and stock up while it was still more affordable. That's exactly why I always say it's better to spend time in the market than try to time the market. The key is to take advantage of opportunities when they come your way. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on more free content. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.